You're busy, you've got a decent practice, but nobody wants to be decent. You want to be great, and you want to have a great practice. So how did the most productive, profitable dentist in the nation balance real life, work, and profits, and somehow make it all seem fun? Well, it comes down to simple, everyday practices. So grab a lunch, join us as we chat with top clinicians and influencers to discover their formula for uncommon success. Are you ready? Then it's time to explore everyday practices.
Do you feel like you have a superstar on the podcast today, Chad? That's how I feel.
Yeah, but it's kind of like if your aunt was the governor and you still like that most people would find famous or awesome, and you're just like, yeah, I guess so. I forget that she's awesome on a regular basis because I'm just used to her being her and mine and stuff. So yeah, Kari, thank you for being my awesome coach.
Oh, thanks, Chad. I love clients that, push me out of my comfort zone to look at, different perspectives and have that, because it makes me stronger in the long run as well. So it's really nice to have you as a client. You stretch me all the time.
I bet I do. I heard that from teachers all growing up. So I think I know what that means.
I'm not alone. Yes. No.
No, but what's funny is 6 years ago before I started Productive Dentist Academy, I was not coachable, and maybe I'm not now. I don't know, but I was not coachable, and I was not interested in finding advice because I was just like, oh, that's just a bunch, so you've heard that mentality before. And I got to the point when I was like, all right, I'll take advice. And the cool thing about Productive Dentist Academy was that they were basically take it or leave it, so it's just like, well, listen, this is how we do stuff. And this is some of the range of options that you could choose. We don't have just one way. So if you don't want to do this, then don't do it. And over time, I was like, well, tell me more about that way. And so it piqued my interest to where I was eventually doing everything that you guys were recommending, but it took a few years to onboard a little bit and then a little bit more. And there wasn't any problem with that. So I really liked that low pressure mentoring up that happened in my career over the last 6 years. That, like 6 years ago, if you said, hey, in order to be in our workshop, you have to do all 10 things that we're going to recommend over the next couple of days at the workshop, I'd be like, yeah, that's not going to happen because I don't know who you are and I don't care what you think and stuff like that. Just kind of like, some doctors come in kind of skeptical, like, I'm willing to hear you out. But the cool thing was they were just like, listen, if you don't want to, I thought surely they're going to tell me, even though I don't do endo, they're going to be like, well, you probably should start doing endo. And I'll be like, I don't want to do endo. Or if they're like, well, you're going to have to start doing this and that. I don't want to be told what to do. So it was really cool that you guys came alongside and said, well, this would be one way to do it. But, if you don't want to do it, you don't have to. And I'd be like, well, wait a second. Tell me more, Kari. Like, how do we implement that with my team? How does that work? And so kind of to share with us, Kari, what's been your perspective of during this pandemic, me getting rid of insurance, and how's that emotionally felt for you to buckle up, knowing that now I'm kind of taking the bull by the horns?
Well, one, if we hadn't planned on ultimately having this, keep the end in mind, right? So we knew that this day was going to come at some point in time, and
maybe for really, a year and a half-ish.
Yeah.
I mean, so people know, it's like, what do you mean? Like a week ago or a month ago? It's like, no, we've been talking about it.
18 months of slowly, let's drop this one. Let's drop this one. Let's let go of Delta PPO and become Premier. And now it's, this segue into, full fee for service, which is amazing. I'm very, very excited. And, I think PDA is really looking at how we can help support other doctors in there to be able to do that. Because, you had an insane amount of write-offs. What was the
over $1 million last year? Yeah.
So when we start thinking about what can we be doing to put that money back, not only into the office, but your team, your patients, the things that we can be able to provide for them is really, astronomical when you think about what $1 million can do for a practice. And you had mentioned it, like, we will work at a pace that's best for you within coaching. And I think that sometimes, whether I have some doctors that are like, great implementers, some who are reflectors. We have to go over it. They have to think about it. And then it's like, all right, well, I can do this. I'm not ready for this yet, but we're ready for this. So I think really kind of gauging and being in communication. I mean, it's a partnership, you know, we're here to best support our clients, and, you know, really being a sounding board. You know, most of the time you guys know what you need to do. We just have to ask the right questions to get you to the point. So for me, that's the big thing. I was nervous. I'm not going to lie. When you sent out that email, I was like, it's now the right time, COVID 2020, to drop Delta.
Do you know one of my mantras over the last couple of weeks was, what, can it get any worse? What is going to happen? Is it going to get any worse? Let's just do this.
So do you feel like, Chad, do you think like he zigged when everybody else zagged? Is this a counter? To me, it feels counterintuitive to say now's the time and do it. But I've seen an enormous amount of support from our tribe, from fellow doctors that say, boy, that was brave. And we're really excited to see how, you know, how this plays out, and we support you in it. What are you hearing, Kari?
Oh, I mean, all of my clients are like, hey, how has Chad done that? And how can I do that right now? Like, that's what I've been getting. Like, hey, I want to be progressive in this. And so ironically, those have been a lot of the phone calls, is kind of starting to strategize. All right, well,
Good.
And right now we're in the perfect storm. And when I say this, we have the chance and ability to be working on our practice and what ideally that looks like for our doctors and for what they're really wanting and envisioning for their practice. So for me, this is the time to dream big. What does that look like? And then let's start creating that roadmap of what that looks like to be able to do it. This is not something Chad dropped down last week to do. We've been setting this, you know, in stages to get it set up right, because marketing is awesome.
primed, and they've practiced this. Any P word, I don't know, you know, but they've thought through. We've practiced this. We when we get phone calls this week about the letter that we've sent out to patients last week, my team, the admin team, is going to be ready to field those phone calls because we've already practiced it a year ago.
Are you getting those questions now, Chad, already?
Yeah, a few, you know, like, but what's cool is I just heard Taylor this morning on the phone at the office. She said that, you know, like someone called and said, you know, I'd like to know a little bit more about that. And she said, well, we've got our VIP program that basically is like a Sam's Club membership that you can get for a year. She didn't say that, you know, but basically, you know, explaining our in-house insurance alternative and, you know, what it involves. And then saying, you know, if you guys are on Delta, why don't we, and, you know, for the few people that do call and complain, I just kind of gave them liberty to say, yeah, I'll tell you what, for your first cleaning back, why don't we just find out what the difference is, because insurance won't tell us what that exactly what that write-off is going to be. And so let's just get you in. And then the first time we'll just clear it off and call it even. And then we'll know from there on forward. And we kind of just get them used to over the next 6 months being like, well, I'm willing to give it a shot because it's not going to necessarily cost me anything on the front end. And kind of easing people into just like, well, you know, it could end up being $10, and even just subconsciously telling them, you know, instead of like, oh yeah, it'll be hundreds of dollars every x-ray that you take. Because I think that's what they're thinking, is that if we kind of prime the pump by saying, well, you know, even if it is $10, oh, $10, oh, well, shoot, that's probably no big deal. But the fact is, if we're going to increase our PPE, if we're going to increase our protocols and everything like that, the patients don't want to necessarily pay more upfront when they're in network, and the insurance company surely isn't going to pay more. So in essence, then the owner eats it. And I'm fine with eating some of it, but I also feel like it should be shared and it should be valued by the patient. So if half my patients leave and I'm left with the half of the patients that would pay more for it, if I stay in network, those half that would pay more are not going to pay more. And so what's cool is I can find the half that care by finding out who's going to stay. And if they don't stay, they didn't care. They don't actually want anything more than to be afraid of COVID. They don't want to be anything more than reactive instead of proactive. And I'm kind of just done with that.
And so, you know, one of the things that you shared, and I have to say, phone skills and prepping for what happens during this time as you're transitioning off of insurances have to be on point. And one thing that Chad's team does really well is be able to answer this specific phone call and say, you know what, they have dual screens up front. So for those offices that you do not have a dual screen monitor for your admin team member, it's priceless and fairly inexpensive when you do this, but she can pull up the dental benefits and be like, oh, you know what, let me see what that means to you. Actually, it's showing 100% preventative. We're good to go. So, you know, it shouldn't change anything, which is really nice.
And a screen, an extra screen and hooking it up is probably $200, maybe 150. And the fact is, at first they were kind of like, I don't know if I like this, and now they love it. In fact, I've got 4 admin, and they all love it. And at first they were kind of like, I mean, I'll give it a try, but I'm not sure about it. So if your team says, yeah, I don't know if that would work in our office, don't necessarily take no for an answer. Give it to them, and then they'll be like, wow, this is like, you know, a sidearm on each hip. I mean, they're just pow pow. So
It's a good visual.
And one of the things that, you know, I will say, it's really, the more transparent you are with the frustrations of what insurance is binding us to with your patients, you know, like we started using restrictive conversations with patients, like, oh man, I can't even do this crown prep without having to stop, take an intraoral picture to make sure it's deemed necessary by your insurance company. And that's a frustrating place to come from with a lot of offices. So
we started that a year ago, you know, because Kari, you had some of those scripting phone calls, and not a verbatim scripting, but basically role playing. And
absolutely.
I've found that a lot of doctors they'll write me and they'll say, yeah, but I'm like probably 60% Delta, so I don't know if I could do that. And I go, oh shoot, we're 75% Delta. So if I think if I can do it, most anyone should be able to do it. I don't necessarily think that it's for everyone to make that decision. Like that, you know, I don't know your area, I don't know your market, I don't know everything like that. But my area is not like this extra special millionaire club that I could do that versus you being in blue collarville. I mean, I'm on the east side of Des Moines, Iowa. It's really, you know, just kind of as blue collar, kind of regular every day as you get. So Kari, with the phone calls that you've been getting to talk over stuff, first of all, what are some of the people's fears and concerns? Have you had, and like, without sharing people's names, of course, but you know, that said, have you had some breakdowns? Have you had some people that have been upset? I don't feel like today is as bad as it was 2 weeks ago, but where are people's minds when they have called and talked to you heart to heart?
Really, I think the biggest thing with my clients is just how are they going to take care of their team is in the forefront of their mind, is that they just want to take care of their team. They want to take care of their patients. So they're really trying to figure out, how can I keep my communication up and just, you know, really be letting everyone know we're still here, we're still working, you know, for you guys. And I think that's the big thing, where social media right now is a huge impact on what we can be doing. And I think it's going to be highlighting some of those services moving forward that might have been an afterthought, that now it's like, hey, wait a minute, this is a great way to stay connected with my patients and team, and some fun ideas that they're doing.
That's a good point to piggyback off of, is that Bruce has been talking about net zero marketing, and I've implemented that in my office for a couple of years now. So I've already primed the pump. So if someone just said, you know what, on a whim, I'm going to drop insurance just like Chad did, you know, screw them, I'm out of here. That doesn't necessarily mean that you'll end up with the same results, because I have been priming the pump with 8% marketing for a couple of years. And that's important. So, I mean, again, this wasn't just a decision that I woke up and, you know, decided just to do on a last minute decision. And it still, after all this time, was not an easy decision. That was a heavy decision. I mean, basically, what if I get slaughtered by 75% of my patient pool?
Well, we're prepping to make that so it doesn't happen, right? We've got targeted marketing materials in there. And here's the thing that I want the audience to really be thinking about is, your office is also special than the average Joe's office. You know, the CE that you've done, the wow experience that you come into your practice doing, and a patient experience, that's what's going to separate you apart from other offices. So that's part of those little nuances that you have to be working on. And you guys, now is the right time to be thinking about what are the things that we can be doing right now to make an exceptional patient experience when they come in.
Give me one or two ideas.
Kari, let us know.
I mean, really, well, how, you know, what, when we look at the comfort menu, right? So, hey, what's the, you know, a lot of patients, a lot of doctors' offices, it's like, hey, no, we do this for all of our patients, whether it's the radio, you know, headphones that we have. I know, Reagan, that you posted what a great experience that was on there, whether it's blankets, whether it's just the, you know, relaxing, you know, sound of what that is. Same day crowns, you know, you think about when you walk in, the greeting of your admin team member and how they stand up and shake hands with new patients, you know, and it's like really feeling them being a welcome part of that. That's going to be, you know, a step aside, you know, a set.
Does everybody call it a comfort menu?
That's what I see a majority of it, you know, and I'll tell you.
No, I think that is the greatest term. Like, I have an instant visual in my head. How are we serving? I mean, even from a PDA perspective, I think I'll take that back to the team. What's our comfort menu? That's a cool term.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kari.
Yeah, no, I mean, you start thinking about all of the things that you offer to your patients, yet we don't talk about it, right? So when Bruce talks about the barbershop or beauty shop talk, those are the things that are going to step out, you know, that isn't typically, you know, reviewed. So that's where I was like, yes, that's the fun part. You guys may have it, but you're just not talking to your patients about it. And those are the things that will start setting you aside as to what that looks like.
Very cool.
Right now.
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, Kari, I know that you, just to change gears a little bit on you, you know, a lot of our offices are closed, or, you know, most of them are only open to emergency at this point. I don't know if it's federal or not at this point, but haven't heard of anybody being open. So there's time for them to work on the business. That for you kind of means overtime and overdrive for all the clients.
Right.
What are some of the questions and ways that you've been able to help support dentists? What are you being asked to research, and what's your daily look like now, Kari?
Yeah.
Okay, so picture a Zoom meeting all day for 9 hours is typically, and it's one of those fun Zoom meetings where you're meeting, you know, you have team members now that are working from home. So you've got people like are chiming in. It's that classic, like, you know, Karen's here, and then it gets interrupted when someone's talking. And so it's pretty funny to see how people just aren't used to working from home. And obviously I work from home every day, so it's nothing new to me, yet it's fun to be doing this. So some of the things that I have my teams working on and what doctors are really requesting from me right now are, hey, I want to make sure my phone conversion is on point. So how can I make sure when my doors are open or when my marketing is going, can we ensure that we're getting the best conversion rate that we have? And for those offices that are fortunate enough to actually have phone calls recorded, now is the time to be able to listen to those as a team. You can be logging in, you can be grading them, you know, on a 5-star. So that's one of the ways that I'm working with clients on. The other one is fee schedule analysis, right? So when we start thinking about, hey, what are our fee schedules? Do we have our fee schedules entered in to our software? So we're really working with real numbers. Do I need to increase my fees? You know, if I haven't done it, it's the beginning part of the year, right? So this is always on my kind of client checklist. Is that something that we're doing to making sure that, you know, we're being competitive out there? And it's a perfect time for PPO analysis because we've got the flexibility of being able to run reports, really evaluate what that impact can be doing, which is something that, you know, Chad's team, you know, really focused on as well. And man, team training on CEREC doctors, you know, the Spear Education, John Coyce, So I'm recommending like what skills are eating up some of our time that we could be doing with our teams right now. And it doesn't always have to be hands-on in the office. You know,
Sure.
so if we're doing, what I recommend is typically, hey, if there's a John Coyce video you guys want to watch, perfect. Assign it at the beginning of the week and then meet back on Friday to do a little debrief of what were our takeaways, what are we wanting to do when we do it, so that we've got an action plan when our doors open, that it's like, hey, we've done the work to be able to do it.
Have you had experiences where the team is excited in doing the CE and they're not, if they're laid off? Is it something where they can still do that, or do they have to remain on payroll? Is it an individual basis sort of thing?
Yeah, that's getting into probably above my pay grade with HR aspect. So I do know that you can still claim unemployment and be clocked in for specific times. And believe it or not, I have a lot of teams that are dying at home for 9 hours not doing anything. And they're like, hey, what can I be doing right now that can make it even better, or make my training, you know, kind of be that next step? Standard operating procedures, like we all know kind of the step-by-step of what we need to be doing. You could log in. So I would say some are volunteering, some are getting paid an hourly wage to watch it. I would typically recommend it's a seminar pay. So check with your HR consultants out there that, you know, on the best way that they would
disclaimer, Kari.
Hey, I'm a big believer in, you know, making sure that it's not too much. Yet again, we've got typically admin team members, someone there answering the phone, whether it's part-time or not. It's a great way to clean up accounts. It's a great way to make sure that
Working on SDS.
You got it.
Right.
Right. I mean, just really looking, it's a great time to you check supplies, to be able to go through what, you know, hey, let's do a fee analysis of what we're doing, and can we get a better price on our supplies right now, you know? And hey, while we're doing that, let's create the SOP for it so that anyone coming into the practice, we would be able to do that, because this too shall pass. We will be able to, you know, do this. And I think it's going to boom afterwards if we're prepping right to make that happen.
That's fantastic.
You said that doctors, yeah, it is. You said that doctors are concerned about their teams, and I can, you know, attest to that too. What other things are you know, are doctors concerned about, or is that pretty much, you know, like 80% of it, or?
Oh, no, I would say, I mean, obviously, you know, cash flow right now, like, what am I going to have to be doing? You know, how am I going to make this up? You know, I mean, I had one practice that's like $1.2 million they're losing in revenue in the next 3 months if it doesn't, you know, get, you know, slowed down until June. So then it's like, all right, well, let's get a game plan on what we can be doing. What days are we committed to? You know, and you can break that down into easily looking at like, hey, if you don't want to work, I mean, we're all about working smarter, not harder, right? I mean, that's the thing. This is why I love numbers and being able to kind of calculate it on what that looks like. So, I mean, hey, if you want to be, you know, it was 1,066, you know, an hour that we had to make up. So boom, what do? We have 3 providers. We're dividing that up, and now that's their new hourly goal. Now we're working backwards from that. So what do we need to change in our template to support that? And then what are some of the services that we could be looking at and evaluating right now to support that? So when our patients are coming in, that's what we can be doing. So yeah, that's kind of the, you know, the big one. It's just, there's no end date, right? We wish we could wave this magic wand and be like, wonderful. And I, you know, loved Renee's video on, hey, not setting a specific date, because it really is, you don't want to be disappointed when that keeps on being pushed off. So I'm much more of a, hey, let's go worst case scenario. And then, you know, if it's done sooner, then that's perfect. We can be working towards that.
2030 it is.
In the show notes. What was that? Was it the Stockholm?
The Stockdale principle.
Stockdale principle. And it explained to our listeners what that was. Renee is our COO, by the way, Productive Dentist Academy COO, and she kicked off, we've been meeting twice daily, our entire company, once in the morning and once in the afternoon. to make sure that everybody's, being served, that we're helping everybody with this. And she showed this video.
And I believe he was a prisoner of war. And I want to say it was over maybe, 20 years that he was a POW. And so what they, when he was being interviewed, he shared, what are, what made you make it versus other people who died during that time? And he goes, I never, I knew, I had faith that this will get over, like this will end. But other people said, oh, we'll be home by Thanksgiving. Oh, we'll be home by Christmas. And those days would come and pass. And then it's just kind of beating on the spirit, right? So you're just like, hey, instead he's like, I knew it would end. At what point I did not know, but I had the faith that it would end at some point. So I love that. I've really been sharing that with a lot of my clients, because it's like, hey, just have the faith that this too will end. What can we be doing right now to take advantage of the time to work on your business? So what is your mission and vision statement? Do we need to do that? And Chad, I know that you did that with the team. And just getting it really clear so that when we open the doors, those are things that can happen. If you don't have your team in there, there's still things that you can be doing. Look for the training opportunities. Look for those times, where it's like, hey, what can I be focusing on my, forecast? What does that look like? If I change those numbers around, what would I need to do? When I budget, what do I need to be looking at as far as marketing, and right now, just staying connected with your team and offices is huge, in your patients. I mean, I think there's a lot of great tools out there, whether, I have one team doing The Biggest Loser right now, that's
you
kind
do?
of, absolutely. It was awesome. They were like, yeah, there's a cash prize for The Biggest Loser at the end of this. So we're all working out, doing that. They're kind of, checking in with each other and posting
That's
workout
awesome.
videos. So
I think that is an incredible, are they sharing it on social media, or is it like private for them?
Okay, so it's private for them. I encourage them to do social media, yet they're like, I'm not going to put that out there. I was like, hey, that's completely up to you. I'm excited that you guys are doing that. And it's like, it's just a way to stay connected, right? I mean, I think we're all craving that right now. I'm like, I did a Zoom meeting with my girlfriends, for, like, hey, happy hour, at the Miller household. Let's just chat, because you want that interaction. I'm fortunate I get that, but not with like my girlfriends. I'm like, I can't go run over to her house and hang out. So it's just something to kind of be thinking about. So
I think that's a really creative and unique way to stay connected, for sure. I've seen similar things and contests too. There was an orthodontist, and I shared it to our Facebook page.
Oh yeah, I like that.
Doctor, it all, but he's connected with these local other businesses, and they're doing contests too. So you share it, you give a tip or whatever it was, how they're all getting through this together. But it's interesting, through a pandemic where you are socially distanced, I feel like it's bringing together people in a different way.
It really is. I have another team that's doing a book, like when I say a CE book, I always think about, like, hey, a business book on, whether it's the specific, like John Gordon creating a powerful team, or the power of a positive team. Chad, I know you had like 3 or 4 books that you gave to all of your team members to be able to read. Now's the perfect time. What a wonderful gift to give them. And then it's like, hey, we can, chat about it when we get back. But it's like those times that it's like, I'm so busy, I just don't have time to read a book. But now you have the ability to, and, it's a great time for self-learning as well. So, I always strive to be like, hey, how can I be the very best person? And I know I have a lot of team members that are feeling that same way. So doctors, I really encourage you to like, hey, what is it that, we can be doing during this time that we're apart, and let them come up with some of those ideas, because most of the times those are the ideas that they're passionate about, and how can we support it?
So there's a book that I'd like to share. I normally am asking people about books, and you were talking about some of the John Gordon books. The Power of Positive Leadership is one that I recently went through. But one is by Jim Hewling, Sean Covey, and Chris McChess something or another, that it's caught off on my Audible. But it's called 4 Disciplines of Execution. And it basically is a strategy for people doing problem solving. And then when you have meetings, that you're focused on solving those problems rather than just sitting around and talking. So especially for the engineer mind dentists, you want to like have your team like get a hold of this and really just, start solving one problem at a time well, and then going to tackling each problem and having accountability and reporting back and everything like that. The 4 Disciplines of Execution, Sean Covey, SeanCovey. Check that out. And just a thought of mine is then when you come back, man, you're going to be ready to do some problem solving meetings and stuff like that. So just a little free nugget there of everyday practices.
This interview has been full of nuggets.
Right.
Nuggets.
Well, Kari, I'm sure you've got a phone call coming up here on the next hour, so we'll actually give you a few minutes to kind of reprieve and whatnot. Do you, Reagan, kind of want to hit her up? We had asked you before, but I don't remember if it was released, because one of our podcasts and stuff that we recorded at my office, I don't know if the recording wasn't good or if I wasn't good at that point or who knows what, but if we released it. So Reagan, why don't you share our question, and then Kari, I'm going to write down on the paper, so that way on our webinar here, no one else will know, except I'm going to write down what I think the answer is going to be. Okay.
Oh, okay. Bacon or eggs?
Bacon.
Nope, I was wrong.
Oh!
I was wrong.
That's hilarious. And the only reason why I'm saying bacon as much as I am right now, I'm doing that keto diet. And so
Ooh,
I have been,
yes.
well, both bacon and eggs are on that, but I have experimented with lots of different types of bacon out there right now. And so
There.
it's very, see, thank you. Yeah, I like both. It is a hard decision. But
See it on her mouth, Kari. You were like,
but bacon.
bacon, baby. Well,
Well, I
Kari,
hope
thank you.
Yeah, Kari, I appreciate you joining us today, and you're always on the forefront while I'm doing my planning, as I showed on the video, of the stuff around my room and everything like that. And I want you to know that because of your help, I'm going to come back and we're going to kick some rear. In the meanwhile, I'm getting more and more organized. And I told Sarah, I was just like, man, I have not been so busy as when I've been closed. I'm seriously doing 14+ hour days, and I'm just, like trying to do, and I don't know, I hope it's not busybody stuff. I feel like probably there's an hour or two of it that is. And I came up jokingly with that word over webinarization, that seems to explain what everyone can feel right now. But nonetheless, like, it's a busy time, and I appreciate you, checking in with me regularly. And even though I'm not necessarily a needy person in the regard of having to get a hold of you every day or something like that, I do appreciate when we are able to bounce ideas off of you. So I appreciate you joining us on the podcast today.
Oh, thank you guys so much for having me.
Yeah. Well, Reagan, thanks as well for joining us.
Always. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
And we'll hear from you guys next week. Y'all have a good rest of the week. Take care.
Bring your lunch or take us to the gym again next week to improve your everyday practices. Also, subscribe on iTunes, follow us on social media, and sign up for our email list. Now get out there and win with everyday practices.